this is Amer Qureshi. Thank you very much for joining me for the Boss podcast. This is the Boss from Down Under. I'm here in Canberra, Australia. Our guest today is Petr Adamek, the General Manager of Canberra Innovation Network. I caught up with Petr to find out what has made CBRIN so successful. Why has CBRIN been able to attract so many entrepreneurial ventures, raise capital for them, and help them to scale up? So join me for this very exciting conversation with Petr Adamek from CBRIN here in Canberra. Welcome to the Boss Podcast. I'm Amer Qureshi. Thank you for joining me. I'm coming to you from Canberra, Australia this week. And here I'm actually in a place called Canberra Innovation Network, or CBRIN for short. And I'm joined by Petr from CBRIN. Petr, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So it's been a while since we last reconnected. I know you've been doing some wonderful things. So let's tell people a little bit about what CBRIN is, how it came into being, and then some of your success stories in recent times.
Thank you for having me. Canberra Innovation Network is now over 11 years old. We have been set up in 2014 as a not-for-profit organization by the education and research and universities here in Canberra, organizations that are active here in Canberra, as a way to collaborate and connect the innovation ecosystem around entrepreneurs, which is a term that we define more broadly, enterprising people who are sort of bothered by the state of the world and want to change it in some meaningful way, using ideally innovation or leveraging the knowledge in those knowledge institutions and turning it into commercial enterprise or social enterprise that can have an impact and change the world for the better. So that was back in 2014, and since then we have experimented with number of approaches on how to attract people to entrepreneurship and innovation, how to support them as they build their teams, as they try to build the products, show it to first users and customers, get feedback on it, and show it to investors so that they can be supported on their journey, access that funding. And it has been an amazing journey. Lots of people involved, not only from the stakeholders, from the founders, but also from ACT government, who has been there with us from the beginning, who supported the creation of the network. We are in the ACT government building today, and they provide us with the space where we can host the companies in our co-working or in our scale-up hub. And they also provide us with base funding, which is critical and fundamental for us to function well and to have that consistency with which people can know about innovation and can connect to it and leverage these opportunities.
There's a couple of very interesting things, I think, about CBRIN. One is that all the stakeholders coming together and creating the ecosystem. And as you know, I've worked in this space, especially in my younger days. I've worked in countries like Qatar, I worked in Pakistan as well as in Dubai. And it's the ecosystem, and unless all the little bits come together, the key components, everything from funding to the government's help and support, things don't work out well. In this particular case, it looks like all the bits have come together. Stakeholders are collaborating, whether it's the universities, whether it's the government or the entrepreneurs themselves. Would that be correct? That this is all sort of nicely blended together in this ecosystem?
Absolutely. I think Canberra has these amazing two sort of counterintuitive advantages. Number one, it's a true knowledge city. There is like a lot of educated people here working in the public service, but also in the education and research space. And so the sort of participation of the knowledge workforce here in the population as a whole is high. High level of patent activity, and at the same time, the city is quite small. It's not a mega city. So the level of distance from people is smaller. And it also means that the resources can be combined quite well and people can coordinate. Just doesn't make sense in a small city to create multiple incubators and each of the universities competing with their own entrepreneurship programs, etc. It makes sense to build them together. And it's a bit harder. It's a bit less efficient because multiple stakeholders need to achieve some kind of consensus on how to do it. And that's where the Canberra Innovation Network helps, because they are at the table together on the board of the Canberra Innovation Network, on the advisory committees, and participating in the co-creation of the strategy and the work plan. They do it together, and therefore they can then align their resources in concert with one another. So it just makes sense. It's not the easiest thing to do, but we have been quite successful in it.
And the interesting thing about the incubation centers and all of those is that, they rely on young and maybe not so young entrepreneurs coming through with their ideas and with their dreams and visions and so on. And Canberra had never been considered a town which would be full of entrepreneurs or people who wanted to change the world, because it's essentially a public service town. But 10 years plus history that you've got seems like that was an incorrect assumption. Canberra is still full of ideas, full of innovative people and so on. How did that come about? Public service town producing so many good ideas.
I connect the ideas with people, not really the sort of industrial history of the city. And so you have smart people here who see how the world works and want it to work better. And some of them may realize that in the public service, there's only a certain way of how to make it happen.
Yes.
And the entrepreneurship industry and commerce or education and research offer other ways how to do it. And this sort of cross-pollination of these sectors and the ability to move between these sectors is super important. The other one is funding, because the other way you can have impact is to invest in other people's ideas and their teams to make it happen. And I think the enterprising people are everywhere. Whether it's a public servant who is kind of thinking on the weekend or after work, how could I make this work? People come across different technologies. They come across different opportunities and connections, and they just want to have an impact. They want to have a legacy, and entrepreneurship is such a wonderful way to try it and to see what works and what doesn't work, and then get traction, scale it, and really have impact. Whereas if you may be working in a larger corporation or government or bigger organization, you and your role may be limited to your area. And that freedom that entrepreneurship provides, and also the frustration of, I guess, lack of resources, of understanding of people around you, poses a challenge that a lot of people take. And when they do take it, we don't want them to sort of bleed out in the desert by themselves. We want to create a safe space where they can see others are doing it too, and they can learn faster and access resources much faster than they would if they had to assemble the network around themselves.
Yes, and I think like whenever you start at anything, it takes time for it to mature. And I think that what we're talking about here is not something that can be achieved in 1 year, 2 years, etc. So it's quite interesting. We're now looking back at a history of 10 plus years, and the continuity of policies from the government in this case, as well as in the engagement of all stakeholders, has really contributed. And I think the time frame can't be underestimated, because this is not something that could have been done in 1 year, 2 years, or so on.
Absolutely. I think the consistency is important, and it's important to also realize you're not starting from nothing. There have been initiatives, incubators, and a lot of people involved even before Canberra Innovation Network started. It's a point in time when it made sense to bring it all together to reduce the fragmentation, because what you have in any system like this, you have this expansion, like lots of people, copying and doing and trying, and then you can bring it together, and then you have another expansion phase. So I think it was the right time, 2014. You have been in this space for quite some time, and so have I in other countries around the world. 2014 was probably the right moment for that collaborative approach, and it was quite novel at that time. And I think there's a lot of other organizations globally that are now following that model and trying to bring more resources in a collaborative, coherent, and participatory platform. And we have had the luxury of doing it for 10, 11 years. It's true that the consistent government support has been fundamental, and without it, we would not be able to do it. But thanks to it, we were able to prove some of these models, such as First Wednesday Connect or other programs here, that have had now a long run, which means that they can actually show some success.
Yes, and Canberra is an unusual place. Even as I was walking from my place to here, I bumped into the chief minister of the ACT. It's not many cities or countries where you can have such direct access. And I think what has helped in this particular situation is the consistency of government policies, like you've said, the engagement of all the stakeholders. When you look back at the last 10 years, let's focus on the entrepreneurs a little bit. What have been some of the highlights? Which are the companies that you're most, I suppose, excited about in their future?
So I'll mention several, although I don't want to make it about a few only.
Yes,
I think the real value is in this diversity.
Yeah.
You've got companies here that were started, let's say, by a hairdresser during COVID, a company called Miracle, and they do subscription hair color. And so they package beautifully in a sustainably produced way hair color for home use.
Wow.
And in COVID, this was the only way how maybe women can come to a hairdresser. This was the way how they extended their model, and that was then happening at homes, and that business has been very successful. So innovation is not just about the quantum physics and computing, which we have here as well. So I'll mention a few. Quantum Brilliance is building room temperature quantum computer, and it's possible to do this and start this here from Canberra because we have the highest concentrations of PhDs in physics and especially in quantum physics in Australia, here right at the ANU. Or you have companies like MCI Carbon, and they're right behind you, behind this wall.
Yes.
They're putting carbon into construction materials. So basically helping the construction industry to produce buildings that are carbon negative. Massive, massive work. They have international collaborations, a lot of work with Japan and others. And it's very difficult to do this by a single person, a small team. You need a lot of funding. You need government support. You need industrial research facility. And it's possible to do this from Canberra and in collaboration with the networks that exist around Canberra. The other I will mention is Dentroid, a device developed by an engineer and a dentist. Both came from Middle East, actually. Came to Canberra. A classic story of immigration, ingenuity, getting funding from the Innovation Connect grant here, from the Griffin Accelerator, and then going on raising capital from angels and VCs so that they can create a device that can actually allow remote dentistry. A robot on your tooth operated by a surgeon who's somewhere else.
That's amazing.
And a lot of byproducts around it. So a variety of med tech, deep tech, shallow tech as well, as different business models, and that all coexists on the broader network. And we, as Canberra Innovation Network, we don't claim ownership or sort of direct causality. We have not created these companies. We look after the environment on which these amazing people meet each other and make it happen.
Oh, that's fantastic. And another thing I'm curious to ask you about is, since you've been in this space for a while and you've sort of watched many young entrepreneurs and not so young come and go, what are some of the attributes and qualities that you've identified which have made people successful? If you could come up with a few, what would be those?
This is quite interesting and evolving thing. I have evolving thinking about it.
Fair enough.
As the world evolves, because in the past you could potentially see the tech people, the nerds, as the ones who have the closest opportunity to become entrepreneurs because they could iterate really quickly. They could build it themselves and have no cost on having that next model out there. But as the technology comes around and makes it available to you and me to be building something while we maybe have this podcast, the cost is going down, although that's questionable. I think the human skills, the soft skills, are even sort of more important. So I'd say it has to be someone who has the vision. You have to have the vision despite what technology will become available tomorrow.
Right.
because tomorrow there will be different technology.
Yeah, that's for
And,
sure.
and so if you lock in yourself into just one approach and can't be flexible about it, then I don't think that makes for a good entrepreneur. A good entrepreneur is able to change course
Yes.
while having that vision out there. Then the ability to work with people. To me, that's
Yes.
a number one trait, because they need to first convince the early co-founders to come on board without like proper pay.
Yes.
Taking
Yes,
the
yes,
risk. They have to convince the investors, the first customers. And if you are not a good people person or don't understand people, it's very hard.
yes.
So you have to have the vision, be resilient, and be good with people. To me, these are the top three things.
That's very good, actually. And now, you can actually lay claim to these top three things, having observed so many different people. And as we know, in order for a business to grow and an entrepreneur to scale up the business, they need access to capital. And I know this is something that you facilitate through the ecosystem and so on. How much success have you had in terms of finding funding for these startups so they could scale up?
I could talk forever about it, but I think Canberra has been quite successful in being able to attract capital here. And it's not just the venture funds that have been here and subsequent iterations of them. The latest one called Activate Capital, which is a new VC fund that's right here. And it's using the recycled money from previous funds, which is the right way to do it.
Yes.
But also there's one of the oldest angel groups in Australia called Capital Angels here. We've got a mentor-led accelerator program, but there's other smaller or various groups of investors here. And when we run our annual investor showcase, we will have over 100 registered investors to come see and engage, about 30 or more companies that are raising in that particular year in the seed and Series A stage. There are significant capital ventures which came out of the Hindmarsh Group, which was a local building construction and design company. And I think this whole space is going to undergo a change and growth, hopefully.
Yes.
And we will see smaller groups and bigger groups coming to Canberra, looking at the deal flow, because the deal flow here is high quality and offers fantastic diversification for opportunities like capital from Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, or Singapore.
Sure. I saw a number floated around somewhere on the internet of $200 million as the amount that may have been raised so far. Would that be in the ballpark?
No, that's definitely more than that. I would say like 122 million only in the last 90 days.
120 million.
122 million only by 5 companies that have announced that. And so I would say on average in the last 4 years, there would be about 100 million raised. So 400 million in the last 4 years, that would be my guesstimate in Canberra, in ACT alone, or companies that started here.
And one more thing, since I have the benefit of having you for this podcast. All the conversation at the moment, especially in technology space, is to do with AI. Everyone's talking about AI. Is it reflected in the sort of startups and ideas that you're getting through? Or are you still getting a multitude of different enterprises coming in?
We're getting multitude of different enterprises, but everyone's talking about AI. Everyone's thinking how to integrate it. It's not that they are AI first startups, all of them, but there's people with knowledge who are thinking about how will AI impact their industry, and they have to put it in their roadmap in some way. And it may be that they decide, no, there's a human element there that we want to protect, but the AI has to be involved somewhere in the business. And I think we'll see the future that there will be AI first companies. AI will be your co-founder for every single company in the near future. We may be far away from it than we think from listening to the different podcasts that I listen to as well, because the development is highly rapid. But as we know, with any adoption of technology, any change, there is a lag in the overall society adoption. There is also a governance issue. There is a risk and regulation issue that needs to catch up as well. And so it's an exciting time from technologist perspective. life, but also for entrepreneurs creates a massive issue. And the issue is that their customers' world is also being disrupted. So there is no stability for them to focus on. And I think a future company that will survive will be one that will be willing to change every day, this sort of dynamic capability, so that they can refocus, restructure, and reorganize around the new technology, new trends in their customer markets. That's what I predict.
And interestingly enough, when you identified the qualities of successful entrepreneurs or what makes them successful, they were all people-centered, people-centric things. So despite all the technology and everything, success will still probably come down to the human beings, the people.
It's a vision and people, because the vision includes the technology for people and the people who need to go alongside with you as customers, stakeholders, investors, or people working in your company. And you need to, as an entrepreneur, stitch it together in a way that makes sense for the world.
There was a very interesting quote from Jeff Bezos that I came across. I was attending a workshop by a Harvard professor who specializes in AI, funnily enough, and he said, Jeff Bezos' quote was that everyone's focused on the 30% of things that are going to change in the next 5 to 10 years. He said, we are focusing on 70% of the things that will not change in the next foreseeable future. I thought that was remarkable.
Interesting strategy. And I think we see a lot more the predictors of the future here, and they're building something that doesn't exist yet. It's that kind of Elon Musk will put people on the Mars, and I think his KPIs are how many people need to live there. And so it's such a far away goal that there is no direct money in it right now. Right?
But in the future?
So the Jeff Bezoses are like, this has been proven. Let's bring some efficiency into something that has been proven. But I think a lot of people are the Mars people. They want to see a future that's fundamentally better.
Yes, and hope that's how it turns out. It's been wonderful to reconnect and learn more about CBRIN and your recent successes, Peter. Thank you so much for your time and being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Amer, and all the best for us.
Thank you.